The train screamed as it tore through the desert, iron wheels shrieking against steel. Then, with a final gasp of steam, it stopped at Dust Creek Junction, a station baked to splinters by the Arizona sun. The woman stepped down, clutching a baby wrapped in a threadbare blanket. Wind lifted her skirt and dusted her face with red grit. The child whimpered, and she held him tighter. Around her, passengers hurried off, merchants, soldiers, drifters, but none looked twice at her. The station platform was nearly empty by the time the train hissed away, leaving only the sound of wind and the dry rattle of a telegraph wire overhead. She looked around. The sign above the depot door swung and creaked. Dust Creek Junction. The depot clerk squinted from behind the ticket window. "Ma'am, you waiting for someone?" She blinked, lips cracked. Her voice was a rasp. "I don't know." The clerk frowned. "What's your name, miss?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. Behind her eyes, a storm flickered, flashes of light, a man's shout, smoke curling through a train car. But when she reached for the memory, it slipped like water through her fingers. The baby stirred. She looked down at him, confused, terrified. "I don't know," she whispered. The clerk shifted, uneasy. "Well, you can't stay out here. Sheriff's office is across the street. Might be he can help you." She nodded dumbly, clutching the child, and stepped into the blistering street. Dust swirled up with every step. The town was quiet, too quiet for noon. A dog barked somewhere distant. From a saloon porch, a few men watched her pass. One spat. "Lost, looks like." Another chuckled. "Ain't lost. Just don't belong." The sheriff's office door groaned when she pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and tobacco. Sheriff Porter sat behind a desk littered with papers. He looked up, weary eyes under a sweat-stained hat. "Can I help you, miss?" She hesitated. "I was told to come here." He leaned back, studying her, the baby, the dirt, the torn dress. "Name?" Her silence said everything. Porter sighed, rubbing his temple. "You got family? Anyone expecting you?" She shook her head. The baby whimpered again. "Well, Dust Creek's not a place for a lady alone. Boarding house might take you in for a night or two." He reached for his hat. "I'll walk you there." Outside, the sun hammered the street. They crossed past shuttered windows and swinging signs. The woman's shoes were worn near through, her steps uneven. She looked around like someone waking from a long sleep. Each sound a new language, each face a threat. When they reached the boarding house, a heavy-set woman at the door folded her arms. "We don't take charity cases, Sheriff. Last time, I ended up feeding a drifter for a week." "She ain't no drifter," Porter said. "She just needs a place for the night." The landlady looked her up and down. "Name?" Again silence. "See," the woman said, shaking her head. "No name, no stay." She slammed the door. The sheriff turned to her, helpless. "Best I can do is the station bench. I'll send someone with water." She nodded faintly, eyes on the ground. By dusk, she sat again where she'd begun, the platform, empty now except for the sigh of wind through the telegraph wires. The sky burned red, the horizon split by mountains like broken teeth. The baby fussed weakly in her arms. A creak drew her eyes. A man stood near the end of the platform, half in shadow, leaning on a post. Hat low, coat dusted gray, boots worn pale by the trail. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. Something in his stillness made her chest tighten. Not fear, something older, quieter. The baby began to cry. The woman rocked him, whispering nonsense, but her voice trembled. The man pushed away from the post, walked over slow. Spurs gave a soft metallic chime with each step. He stopped a few paces away, crouched, and set something beside her, a folded wool blanket, then straightened again. She looked up. "I can't pay you," she said softly. He shook his head once. Didn't ask. His voice was low, rough, almost forgotten from disuse. She stared at him, eyes glinting in the lantern light. "Do you know me?" He hesitated. "No," then after a beat, added, "But I know lost when I see it." Wind howled down the tracks. Somewhere far away, thunder rumbled. She wrapped the baby in a blanket. It smelled faintly of leather and smoke. "Thank you," she murmured. He tipped his hat, turned to leave. "Wait," she said suddenly. Please, who are you? He paused, looking back over his shoulder. The brim of his hat hid his eyes, but his jaw tightened. Just a rider passing through. He started toward the hitching rail where a dun-colored horse waited, its reins slack. You're not from this town, she said. No one worth knowing is, he answered, almost to himself. Lightning flickered across the far mesas. She pulled the blanket tighter, the baby warm against her chest. The air smelled of rain and dust. Sir, she said quietly, I don't even know who I am. He stopped mid-step, shoulders tense, rain beginning to tap the brim of his hat. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he turned back to face her. When he spoke, his words carried through the storm like something final, like scripture. You do now. The thunder answered him. The wind caught his coat as he turned again and walked into the darkness, the rhythm of his spurs fading into the rain. She sat there, still heart-pounding. The baby stirred, sighing against her shoulder. For the first time all day, she smiled, small, fragile, but real. Down the tracks, a lantern swung in the storm, and the old telegraph wire hummed again, a ghost's whisper chasing the cowboy's fading silhouette into the night. The hammer struck wood. Once, twice, then silence. Caleb Harlan lowered the mallet, sweat cutting through the dust on his brow. The fence post stood straight now, last of the row. The ranch was quiet except for the whine of windmill blades turning slow in the heat. Behind him, the baby laughed, a small, sudden sound in all that silence. The woman smiled from the porch, her hair pulled back, sleeves rolled high as she rocked the cradle with her foot. He watched her a moment, then turned back to work. The land stretched empty in every direction. Brittle grass, cracked soil, a horizon that never moved closer no matter how far you rode. It had been a month since the night at the station. She still hadn't remembered her name. In town, folks talked. They always did. Silent Cowboy took her in. One man muttered over a whiskey glass. Can't trust a woman with no past, another replied. The saloon girl smirked. Maybe you don't care. Maybe she ain't the only ghost on that ranch. Dust Creek was a town built on whispers, and the wind carried every one of them straight to Caleb's door. That evening, when he came in, she was at the stove, stirring a pot of beans, humming soft to the baby. He hung his hat on the peg and stood a moment before speaking. Sheriff came by. Her hand stilled. What did he want? Said there's been trouble south of here. Payroll, train hit last month. They're still looking. Her voice dropped. A robbery? He nodded once. They got away clean, but they're looking for a woman. Said she fit your description. The wooden spoon trembled in her hand. That can't be me. He didn't answer. Outside, the wind picked up, slapping the shutters. I don't even know my name, she said. How can they? He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. World small when you're running a... She turned, eyes wet. You think I'm lying? He looked at her for a long time before saying, I believe what I see. The baby cried then, breaking the stillness. She turned away, clutching him, whispering comfort through shaking lips. That night, long after she'd gone to sleep, Caleb sat on the porch, a lamp beside him. The moon burned low over the ridge. He thumbed a worn badge he kept in his pocket, its shine dulled by years of dust. A lawman once, a husband once, both gone the day his family was buried under red dirt and gun smoke. He turned the badge over, listening to the night. Somewhere out there, coyotes cried, long, hollow wails that sounded like memory itself. Next morning, Dust Creek buzzed. A new poster hung by the saloon door. Wanted, Lydia Cole, for train robbery and murder. Sheriff Porter tacked it up himself, jaw tight. He didn't like the job, but duty was duty. Name's Lydia Cole, he told the gathered townsfolk. Used to work telegraph for the line. Fell in with the wrong crowd. Real dangerous if cornered. Someone whispered, ain't that the woman staying with the silent one? Porter's eyes flicked toward the hills. That's between him and the law. For now, by sundown, the poster had been copied and pinned to half the buildings in town. The whispers turned sharp. At the ranch, the woman, Lydia now, though she didn't yet know it, found one of those posters nailed to her gate. She tore it down, staring at her own face drawn in rough charcoal. The baby cooed in her arms, unaware. Caleb came up behind her. She turned to him, trembling. They think I'm her. He looked at the paper, then at her. I don't remember, she said. But what if they're right? What if I did those things? Then why's the baby still alive? He asked quietly. Her breath caught. I don't know. He took the poster from her, folded it once, and tucked it into his coat. Best not to think on what ain't proven. But his eyes lingered on her longer than before, and when he looked away, she could feel the distance between them stretch like the land, endless and silent. Days passed. The town watched. Caleb kept to his chores. Lydia kept to the house. The baby's laughter was the only sound that felt clean. Sometimes she caught him watching her, like he was measuring something unseen, trust maybe, or danger. Other times, she'd catch herself watching him. The way he moved, quiet, steady, never wasted emotion. The way he'd check the horizon before sundown, like expecting ghosts to ride out of it. One evening, she asked, "Why don't you talk much?" He didn't look up from the saddle he was mending. Talk's cheap. Truth ain't. You don't trust me. He paused. I don't trust anyone. Not anymore. His voice carried a weight she didn't question. A storm rolled in a week later. Sky black, wind fierce. The roof rattled. She ran outside to pull down laundry before the rain hit. Thunder cracked. Lightning flashed over the ridge, and for a split second she saw movement. Riders, distant, dark against the stormlight. She froze. "Caleb," she shouted. He came out shotgun in hand, eyes sharp. "Where?" She pointed, but the ridge was empty now, only wind and dust. "You sure?" "I saw them," she said, voice breaking. 5, maybe 6. He scanned the horizon a long time, then lowered the gun. Could have been wild horses. She shook her head. No, they were watching. He didn't answer, just turned, eyes narrow, and went to check the rifle by the door. That night, the wind howled through every crack in the cabin. Neither of them slept much. At dawn, the storm had passed. The land was washed clean, except for one thing. Boot tracks, fresh ones, 5 sets leading from the ridge straight toward Dust Creek. Caleb crouched beside them, jaw tightening. "They're heading for town," he muttered. Lydia stood beside him, the baby pressed close. "Who are they?" He looked at the tracks, then at her. "Men you don't want remembering you." The wind rose again, carrying voices faint and low, like the land itself was whispering secrets it shouldn't. By noon, Sheriff Porter rode up the trail. His horse kicked dust across the yard. "Morning," he said, dismounting. "We need to talk." Caleb didn't invite him in. Porter nodded toward Lydia. "Word is, the gang you used to ride with might be coming back. You know anything about that, ma'am?" Her face went pale. "No, I don't." "She don't," Caleb said flatly. Porter's gaze moved between them. "Be sure, when they come, they'll be wanting blood, or the boy." Lydia clutched the baby tighter. Porter tipped his hat. "If I were you, I'd be ready." Then he rode off, leaving dust in his wake. The silence that followed was heavy as thunder. Lydia turned to Caleb, tears bright in her eyes. He said the boy. Why would they want him? Caleb looked toward the horizon, where the tracks disappeared into gold dust. "Because some things," he said quietly, "ain't left behind easy." The windmill creaked again. The baby laughed, and somewhere beyond the ridge, unseen hooves began to move. The first shot cracked before dawn. A window shattered. The baby screamed. Lydia dropped to the floor, clutching him tight, breath sharp in the dark. Caleb was already up, rifle in hand, boots hitting the floorboards heavy as thunder. "Stay down." Another shot hit the doorframe, splinters flying. Outside, hooves thundered through the dust, the sound of death coming fast. He moved to the window, eyes narrowed. 5 riders cutting through the morning haze, guns flashing in the rising light. Dust devils rose behind them like ghosts. "Get to the back room," he said. Lydia crawled, clutching the child. The cabin creaked as bullets punched through the walls. "Caleb," she cried. He didn't answer. He was already moving, calm, silent, practiced. He knelt by the window, sighted the first rider, and fired once. The man toppled from his saddle. The rest scattered, circling wide. Their laughter echoed across the yard. A voice rose above it, rough, cruel, familiar. "Lydia, you've been hiding, girl." She froze. The baby whimpered against her shoulder. That voice, she knew it. She didn't remember his face yet, but the sound of it cut through her like a blade. The gang dismounted, boots hitting dirt. 5 shadows in the dust. Their horses snorted, restless. The leader stepped forward, black duster flapping, a scar running down his jaw. "Thought you could take what's mine, huh?" he called. "That boy don't belong to you." Caleb's voice was low behind the door. "She ain't yours neither." The outlaw laughed. "And who are you? The station ghost that took her in? You got no stake in this, friend." Caleb stepped out onto the porch, rifle leveled. His shadow stretched long across the dirt. "I got enough." The outlaw grinned. "Well, look at that." A quiet man finally found his voice. Lightning cracked across the sky, though no storm followed. The baby cried again, a thin sound swallowed by wind. Lydia pressed herself to the wall, shaking. Fragments of memory flashed like sparks. Gunfire in a train car, a man shouting orders, her hands clutching a baby that wasn't hers. "His name ain't yours to take," the outlaw called. "You stole him when you ran, Lydia. You stole everything." Her breath hitched. The name, Lydia, struck her like thunder. She remembered. The train, the blood, the man's hand dragging her down the corridor as fire bloomed behind them. His face, his face. She screamed. "You killed them. You killed the guard." The outlaw smiled, cold as winter. "You were part of it, sweetheart. Don't forget that." Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. "That true." Lydia's tears streaked through the dust. "I tried to stop them. He shot a man, a father. I ran with the baby before he could kill him, too." The outlaw's grin widened. "Told you she's a thief. Now, hand over the boy." Caleb didn't move. A long silence settled, broken only by the windmill creaking behind them. The outlaw's eyes narrowed. "You got one chance, cowboy. Step aside." Caleb said nothing. "Last chance." Nothing. The outlaw spat, flicked his hand. 2 of his men raised their rifles. Caleb moved first. The first shot split the air like a whip. One outlaw fell backward, dead before he hit the ground. The second's bullet grazed Caleb's arm, drawing blood. He didn't flinch. Lydia screamed. The baby wailed. The remaining riders fired wild, hitting the porch posts, shattering the water trough. Caleb stepped off the porch, walking slow through the dust, each step deliberate. His face was calm, too calm. The outlaw sneered. "You think you can take us all?" Caleb's reply came like a low growl. "Done it before." Recognition flickered in the outlaw's eyes. "Wait, you." "Marshal Harlan," Caleb said. "You remember me now." The outlaw's face twisted. "You're dead." "Not yet." Then the yard exploded into chaos. Gunfire roared, dirt kicked up in blinding clouds. Caleb moved like a man carved from shadow, every motion precise. 2 more fell. The last tried to flee, leaping onto his horse, but Lydia, shaking, tears cutting through grime, picked up the revolver from the floor and fired once. The man slumped sideways. Only the leader remained. He backed away, eyes wild. "You don't understand. The boy's mine." Caleb leveled his gun. "Not anymore. You'll never stop looking over your shoulder," the outlaw shouted. "There's more coming." The shot cut him short. He dropped to his knees, dust rising around him, then fell face first into the dirt. Silence rolled in, heavy, endless. The wind picked up again, carrying away the smoke. The horizon shimmered under the morning sun. Caleb lowered his gun slowly, chest heaving. Lydia stood in the doorway. The baby clutched to her, tears falling silent. He walked toward her, each step dragging the weight of years. Blood trickled from his arm, but his voice was steady. "You remember now." She nodded weakly. "Lydia Cole. I was a telegraph clerk. They used me to plan the heist. When I saw what they'd do, I ran." She looked at the lifeless bodies. "That boy, he's not mine." Caleb's gaze softened. "He ain't theirs either." The baby reached toward him, small hands in the light. Caleb hesitated, then took him gently. The sun rose higher, burning gold through the haze. Lydia watched him. This man who'd saved her, this man who'd stayed silent until words mattered most. He turned, glancing once at the horizon where the riders had come from. Smoke curled from the burning barn behind them, the fire spreading slow. "Best we get him inside," he said quietly. She nodded. "Why you tell the sheriff?" "The truth," he said. And the rest? That's between God and the desert. They stepped back into the cabin. The door closed. Outside, the wind carried the smell of gunpowder and rain. And across Dust Creek, the people would soon hear of it. How 5 men rode out to the Harlan Ranch at dawn and never came back. How the silent cowboy spoke at last. Smoke curled from the barn long after the shooting stopped. The wind shifted it low across the yard, carrying the smell of gunpowder, sweat, and burned hay. Sheriff Porter rode up slow, his horse's hooves crunching through shell casings. He reined in beside the bodies. Lord above. Caleb stood near the well, sleeve torn and bloodied, eyes hollow but steady. The rifle hung loose at his side. Behind him, Lydia held the baby, rocking him against the crying wind. Porter climbed down, scanning the scene. 5 men sprawled in the dust, faces blackened with smoke. All of them dead? Caleb nodded once. Anyone else hurt? Lydia's voice was faint. No, Sheriff. It's done. Porter looked between them, jaw tight. I'd say there's a story here. Question is, who's telling it? Caleb met his eyes. You came for answers. There they are. Porter frowned. You're a hard man to read. Harlan. Thought you disappeared years ago. Caleb didn't flinch. Tried to. Lydia's grip on the baby tightened. Porter turned toward her, gaze softening. And you, ma'am. You're Lydia Cole, ain't you? She nodded slowly. I remember now. Porter sighed, thumb tracing the edge of his badge. You're wanted in 3 territories. Robbery. Accessory to murder. That true? She lifted her chin, eyes bright through the grime. I was there. I helped plan the heist. But I didn't pull a trigger. When I saw what they'd done, I took the child and ran. He's not mine, Sheriff. But he's innocent. The sheriff studied her a long moment. Innocence a rare thing here. He turned to Caleb. You vouch for her? Caleb's voice was low. With what I got left. The wind pressed against them, hot and dry. Porter nodded once, slow. Then I'll write it that way. He swung back into the saddle. Dust Creek don't need another ghost story. But I reckon this one lived long anyhow. When he rode away, the echo of hooves faded like a heartbeat. Lydia turned toward Caleb. You didn't have to do that. He holstered his rifle. Didn't do it for you. She looked down at the baby, his small hand gripping her dress. Then why? He glanced toward the horizon, where the sunlight met the dust. 'Cause no child deserves to grow up wondering what name he carries. For a long while, neither spoke. The windmill creaked. The baby laughed softly, breaking the spell. She smiled through tears. He doesn't even have a name. Caleb looked at her then, really looked at the dirt on her face, the firelight in her eyes, the courage that had outlasted fear. He does now, he said. That evening, Dust Creek gathered in silence. The smoke from the Harlan Ranch could be seen for miles. Folks whispered, as they always did. They say he was Marshal Harlan once. Silent one who hung up his badge after his family was killed. And that woman, the one he saved, stole a baby from killers, they say. Some stories you don't forget. By the next sunrise, the sheriff had cleared the bodies, buried them on the edge of town. No markers, just mounds of sand and a line of hoof prints leading nowhere. Caleb stood there a long time before dawn, hat in hand. Lydia came beside him, the baby bundled against her chest. You'll leave? She asked. He nodded slightly. Dust Creek's got enough ghosts. Don't need me among them. And us? She asked. He turned his head. You're not mine to keep. Her eyes glistened. Maybe we don't belong to anyone anymore. He almost smiled. Then you'll do fine. She looked down at the baby, whispering something only the child could hear. When she looked up again, Caleb was already walking away, spurs glinting in the sunrise. The wind rose, brushing sand across the fresh graves, erasing footprints as fast as they were made. Years later, the legend was still told. Around campfires, in saloons, along the lonely trails that cut the desert in two. Folks would speak of the woman with no name and the silent cowboy who gave her one. Some said he was an outlaw turned saint. Others swore he was a marshal come back from the dead. No one agreed on the truth. But all remembered the story. How 5 riders came to Dust Creek and never rode back. How a baby was spared, and how the wind carried their names away into the desert night. They said the woman stayed. raised the child on the edge of town, near the tracks where her life began again. Every morning, she'd stand on the platform as the train came through. Baby grown now, tall, steady, and she'd smile at the horizon, where silence once wore a man's face. And when travelers asked who she was, the old station master would grin and say, "She's got a name now. A good one." The old storyteller's voice cracked like dry wood as he ended the tale. The firelight flickered across his wrinkled hands, smoke curling into the night. "They say he rode off before dawn," he murmured, leaving 2 sets of footprints and 1 legend behind. Some claim he's still out there, following the wind. Some claim the desert keeps his secrets. The children around the fire leaned closer. "What about her, mister?" one asked. "What happened to the woman?" He smiled faintly. "She kept living. That's all any of us can do." He tapped his pipe against a stone, ember dying. "Names fade. Stories don't. And when the dust settles on Dust Creek, you can still hear him, spurs jingling in the wind, walking beside a name he gave away." The fire hissed, and the wind whispered through the sagebrush like a voice half remembered, half believed. And somewhere beyond the ridge, the sound of hooves echoed once more, soft, steady, and fading into legend.